Welcome to Real Estate Success DFW, the podcast where top producing agents from Dallas-Fort Worth come together to share their stories and strategies behind their success. I'm Shaune, Corbett, your host, and with over 300 million sold in the local real estate market and the honor of being best of breed multiple times, I know what it takes to make it in this market. Each episode, we're going to dive into the world of real estate, learning from the very best in the industry. If you're ready to level up your game, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey everyone, Shaune Corbett here with Real Estate Success DFW. I have got a special guest with us. It is Bernadine, but everyone calls her Bernie. I've had several classes with her, and she's taught some of the classes that I've attended, and she's got a wealth of knowledge. So it's Bernie Anderson. How are you, Bernie?
I'm good. How are you, Shaune?
Oh, spectacular. So I want to go back a little bit. And what I always like to start with is, why the heck are you selling real estate? I mean, there's a lot of things we could do. Some of it's in the family, and then others is just how it falls in your lap. And I feel like another handful are investors, right? They want to save money on commissions, and they jump in and they think they can start selling real estate. They're like, wow, I've got a license. I'll sell to my friends too.
Yeah.
I know everything about real estate.
Yeah.
Which we know that's not the case. But anyways, how did you get into real estate?
So in year 2000, my first husband and I moved from Key Largo to Auburn, California, and outside of Sacramento. And that's when real estate was just now being put on the MLS or online, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So I sat in Key Largo and looked for houses and went up to Northern California, and I basically handed our agent was my husband's cousin, said, here's the 13 homes I want to look at, here's the map, this is one I'm pretty sure I'm going to buy. And just kind of went through the whole process with her. And as I'm sitting there, I realized this was her first deal. Like, I was going, no, you got to do it this way. And I'd never sold. Now, mind you, we tried to sell for sale by owner in Key Largo. And I immediately, after about a month, went to my friend and said, you need to sell our house. So after I did that, I was a flight attendant at the time for American. And so I thought, you know what? I want to do this. I want to try it. I was thinking, gosh, if she can do this, my husband's cousin, Debbie, if Debbie can do this, I can do this. So I went and took my classes and passed the test, took them all online, and just literally finished my classes when 9/11 happened. So decided that was a good time to retire. We had an early out program, and went into real estate full time, and I loved every minute of it.
Let me ask you something a little off track a little bit. So you bought a house through your husband's cousin.
Who I didn't know.
Yeah. The interesting factor here is often we might go to family for their first or second deal. Is she still selling real estate today?
Yes.
Okay. Would you call her today if you're moving to the area, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. Yeah. Well, now she has experience, right?
Yeah.
What happens though is that people that we're close to, especially one step away, we won't call them.
Right.
We don't want them in our business. But if we are the first, second, or third deal, you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of one of those things. And I know at the time you realize, wait a minute, I'm teaching her all the absolute basics. She has never done this.
Yeah.
And she's just like, okay, you tell me what to do.
Well, and when we went to closing, there was an administration fee on our HUD statement. And my husband was like, what is this? And I could see it in her face. She was scared. She goes, oh, she was with Coldwell Banker. They make us charge that. And he goes, well, that would be great if you'd have told me, but you need to take it off. So she had to pay it. So if she'd have just disclosed, hey, we charge this admin fee, which we asked what it was for, and she couldn't explain it. So he just said, no. He goes, you can't just spring that on us, which is minor, $250. We bought a $500,000 house, but $250 was nothing. It was the fact that we weren't told. But she's learned a lot. She's doing a lot right now. And I actually, when I got my license, joined Coldwell Banker, and then went on to KW from there when it was Killer Who,
Yeah.
So.
I love it. You said, is it Auburn Hills or?
No, Auburn. It's between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. So we're in the foothills of the Sierra Mountains. Okay. So there's Colfax and Grass Valley, but Auburn is it's 30 miles up the main freeway from Sacramento. So it just takes me 30 minutes to get into downtown Sacramento.
Okay. And that's starting in real estate, right? So I know you've expanded, you've gotten into appraisal,
Yes.
and then you've also gotten into property management, and and now you're in commercial as well, where you currently are. So there's some transitions that happen. What made you decide to have a license and get into appraisal? Because I feel like it wasn't too terribly long ago you did that.
Right. Well, I have a finance degree, and I felt like I was not utilizing this finance degree, but I was always interested in appraisals. And when I started looking into it, I was like, gosh, how am I going to do this? Because in Texas, to be an appraiser, you have to be trained and mentored by an appraiser.
Like 2,000 hours and
Yeah. So the hardest part is finding that person to train you.
yeah.
And so I happen to be talking to an old friend of mine
Because
and
you did
telling,
this after COVID, right?
yes, well,
Yeah.
actually, I started helping him before I was a licensed trainee in 2019 in like
Okay.
October.
Okay. Well, I
So then,
mentioned that because the market dropped and the inventory dropped. So
mhm,
you're going to really have a hard time getting properties to go look at when you have all these appraisers, just like real estate agents, sitting around waiting for things to happen.
yeah, well, I'm going to tell you, COVID was crazy because we were doing 10 to 12 appraisals a week.
Yeah. Oh, at that time, yes,
Yeah.
during COVID.
Yeah. So I started like helping him, and then you have to become a licensed trainee. So my friend was like, I said, I really want to do this, but I don't know of any appraisers that would train. And the few that I called, they're like, yeah, we're not doing that because they don't have to, but they usually share a part of their fee. And so it's a nominal fee they get for this work, right? So my friend goes, I have a friend that's been doing it 32 years, has his own company. Maybe you need to talk to him. So we met and talked, and he goes, oh, I'm not going to do that. And I said, okay. So about a month later, he called me, he goes, eventually I want to retire. So maybe I need to train somebody, maybe sell my business. And I go, okay, let's do it. So I started helping him. He started showing me how to measure. I shadowed him basically. My sales kind of went slightly lower because I was spending a ton of time learning how to measure houses and all the different things that are required. And then you got to take all these classes, which are quite a bit more expensive than real estate classes. So first you got to take 79 hours for the trainee license. Then you have to, while you're doing your trainee hours, you have to have another 150 hours of education, and that's to get a licensed appraiser. And then from there, you can do certified residential. And I had a degree, so a lot of my classes would actually qualify. So if you send in your degree when you submit your application to take the test, they will use those classes. They will pick the classes that they say will qualify.
Yeah.
But there were certain classes I had to take. So I took four more classes during the time I was doing all the appraisals. And you have to log every single appraisal, and he has to sign off that. And I have to put what I did. Did I measure? Did I take pictures? What did I do? Right. Um, and so he signs off on everything. It's one of those things where I told him I don't care how much you pay me because I'm still going to sell. I wanted to learn it. So it was work to learn before you work to earn.
Yeah.
So he paid me like 25 bucks a file to clean up the sketches and to look at the comps and stuff like that. And it was a learning curve for somebody who'd been in the real estate business at the time, 20 years. I pulled comps and he pulled comps completely different.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow. So he
It's
was
it's interesting because you're going to talk about this, like your view as an agent versus his view as an appraiser. He has a
mhm,
completely different mindset, and he has guidelines that he has to meet in order to qualify him. So he's going to
right.
exclude a lot of things that you would want to include, and he has reasons for it because FHA or conventional or VA.
Hmm.
And I know that creates a lot of myths about appraisals from the agent's perspective,
Right.
and that's some of the things that I want to make sure we get in touch as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I kind of teach this class to agents. It was really good yesterday because there were a lot of questions and they were like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. Because they were taught differently. And I know because I was with major brokerages and I was training and I was taught one way. So I taught the way I was taught. And how I learned to do appraisals was completely different. So I thought realtors need to know this. So that's why I just kind of put together all these myths and tips and tricks to help you get your appraised value. And the most important thing is the price. But anyway, it took me there's three different appraisals. Licensed appraiser, you don't have to have a degree. Certified residential, you have to have a degree. And certified general is like the top one, right? And that's
And
even
and
more
they can
hours.
do the more expensive homes.
Right.
Yeah.
So licensed appraiser, you can only do appraisals under $1 million. Okay, you can't go past that. Certified residential, you can go beyond and you can appraise land and all that stuff, right? Certified general, you can do everything, commercial, whatever. I mean, you expand. And so it took me about a year and a half into getting this license. The guy training me coming up with cancer. So I ended up kind of taking it on while he was fighting it. The jobs he got, I went out on them. I did all the work. He just sat at home and signed off and looked at them. So it was tough. I mean, we were doing, like I said, 10 to 12 a week.
Mm.
And when you have to go, you have to inspect them. You have to visually put your eyes on them. You have to go inside and take pictures. You have to measure around the walls. Measuring is not as easy as people think. Luckily, I had a laser and I had a little computer program. That was my weakness. And I told him that. I said that you're going to have to I'm going to have to practice. So it takes a lot of practice to figure out how to measure these correctly. And you can measure it 3 times and get different measurements. But anyway, so yeah, I was working, working, working. And so July 2022, I went to take my test, passed it. The next week, all the jobs dropped off. It's like we hit a wall in real estate. Like the 10 to 12 we were getting a week, gone. 2 or 3 maybe for him. And when you're struggling and that's his business, and I still had my sales, he was taking those for himself. He didn't want to share, which I don't blame him. That was his, because he was back on his feet and still kind of fighting cancer. But basically, I worked 2 jobs. I sold real estate, and it was our busiest year, 2020 and 2021. Luckily, my husband's a realtor, so he kind of took hold of the sales part. But yeah, I worked 2 full-time jobs to get that license, and that was my goal. And I have to admit, like halfway through, I was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? My personality profile is high D, driving force. Forget the details. I just want to go, go, go. I make decisions, right? And I worry about the details later. Appraisals are very detailed. So, and I learned very quickly that appraisals, you have a different boss every time you do one. So you have a different lender, you have a different appraisal management company. So when you start now, the guy that trained me, he had a relationship with a lot of these appraisal management companies. So they knew him and they would say, hey, can you take this one? So they knew him. But when you're new, it's tough to get that business. And so I'd send in an appraisal based on what the last lender required. And they go, no, we need this. And so they give these work orders and you have to read them. That's your scope of work. Do you go back 180 days? Do you go back 365 days? And you have to go beyond what they require. You have to explain it. You have to explain everything, all the details.
Yeah,
Every
you have to
single
response for why you excluded something or why you
right.
included something that's outside of the typical scope. For
I did a
sure.
lot of very complicated appraisals, which I was shocked, but yeah.
Did you have agents, and I know you've probably done this, right? Is dispute the appraisal. So you do an appraisal and I'm working for the buyer, or it could be either side, really. We
Mhm.
all want a higher price, right?
Right, right,
If your appraisal comes in too low, everybody loses. So everyone has an incentive to say, hey, why not consider this one or consider that?
right.
Did you ever talk to the agents, or do you just work through the computer and email and that's it? Or you work through your appraisal management company?
Well, if I submit the appraisal, the management company looks at it and sometimes they'll kick it back before they send it to the lender
Yeah.
and say, hey, explain this. Because a lot of times, like I did a whole bunch of brand new builds in Tolar, Texas, little tiny town, and it's a company out of California. And so they're like asking me all these questions. And I go, listen, I know the market. And they're building such an odd product. I had to go into Granbury to get the comps. So I had to explain it all. So sometimes it's the appraisal management company, then it's the lender. And when it gets kicked back, my personality is like, what? I didn't mess up. But no, because I know a lot of agents and I've recruited for Keller Williams before and stuff, and I know a lot of agents, I'll call them and say, hey, I'm going to go out there and appraise the property. And if there's anything you want to tell me about the place. So I believe that helps, because there's a myth out there that, realtors can't talk to the appraisers. And that's not true. The appraiser can't let them influence them, because our opinion of value is just that. It's an opinion of value based on the numbers. And it's in-depth research. It's for lenders. It's for tax purposes. It's for estate purposes. There's just it's
Sure.
very detailed and it's
Get a
very
little bit of a
regular.
judge in this space, right? So you're kind of a judge of value, and we can certainly give you more material fact to help
Yeah.
influence the judgment that you might not consider. You
Right.
know,
Well,
it
like,
doesn't change the value. It's just like, hey, I just want to make sure you recognize that this is the largest lot in the neighborhood or whatever
yeah,
might be a benefit.
yeah. Well, and here's what I told the agents yesterday in the class I did. I said, put a little package together. Share with me the comps you use because I may or may not have already pulled them, but you may have found one that I didn't. Sometimes I'll pull comps and I go back and go, oh, wait, I didn't see this one. Or and leave if there's a lot of improvements, like updates, not a new air conditioner and a new hot water heater. Those aren't improvements. That's
Yeah.
maintaining the house.
That's the expectation at sales price that
Hmm.
those things are included.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
If they have this hand scraped wood floors that came from Italy, tell me about it. Give me the price. I'm not going to value it at that, but I'm going to, if I see that it's something a lot nicer than some of the comps, I'm going to add a little bit of value. But if I walk in and just see hand scraped wood floors, then I'm just going to go, okay, wood floors on my report, right? So anything to help us get a bigger picture of what the property is, right? So anyway, that's, I mean, gosh, I took my tests and then I kind of went on my own to do appraisals, and I was doing that while I was doing sales, and it was tough because there wasn't a lot of work. I was doing maybe 3 to 5 a month, and I've done it. And when it dropped off with the appraisal management companies because they're using all the more experienced appraisers, I had realtors, I had people I knew, I had attorneys, I mean, I did a lot of estate, data death. I had all kinds of appraisals that weren't through the lending portion.
Sure.
And you
Yeah.
still have to meet those, we call them the USPAP guidelines, with this uniform standard procedure, practices, appraisal practices, something like that. I always mess it up, but it's like a thick book. In fact, it's probably laying around my office somewhere, of guidelines that we're supposed to go by. And they teach you that it doesn't matter if it's a lender or not, we still have to go by those guidelines, you know?
So these are the things outside of purchase that, I tell you where I see a lot of value in appraisal is it takes the buyers and sellers or heirs, which is a big common one, out of
Hmm.
the equation. I can say,
Right.
hey, I can have Bernie come
Hmm.
appraise it and we'll take all of our opinions out. And once we have value, we can divide at that point, minus the cost to sell. I would probably take that out too.
Right. Right.
But yeah, because you're going to use the include. That's a big thing right now. And I try to always remind people. So we go back, right, with the BAC thing coming out, the buyer agent commission. The sellers are selling and they're not really thinking and including and accounting for all sales prices prior included a BAC because that's the traditional way we sold real estate. So that's built into the sales price. Well, they're trying
Hmm.
to keep that in some cases. It
Right.
didn't really land the way I think everyone expected, only because
Exactly.
the buyers are running the market. So if
Right.
sellers want to sell, they better start paying some commission or they're not going to sell.
Right.
So it never landed and it never got implemented the way they intended. And who knows if it will? We've
Right.
already got a year later and we're all still kind of operating the same way we did before just because sellers need to sell.
Exactly. I mean, I had a seller, I just closed him, but he researched the NAR, he's
Yep.
86 and they hadn't sold in 30 years, friends of mine. And he goes, I don't want to offer a buyer's agent commission. And I go, well, we may have a hard time selling. So he's like, okay, I'll offer 1.5%. That's tough for me to tell my co-associates, hey, this is what he's offering.
Yeah. And
But
the
I
price
just,
he's selling at includes consideration of paying a competitive
right.
BAC, right?
And so he ended up paying 2.5% because
Okay.
he realized after 5 months that he wasn't going to sell it. I
Well, I
mean,
always tell everyone the same thing, right? So you're the buyer agent and
mhm,
you've got two houses. One is paying you nothing or 1.5, and the other one's paying 3%. We're not supposed to have that consideration. If it's 18,000 on one and 9,000 on the other, what are you going to do?
yeah.
You're putting the buyer agent in a very difficult position.
Yeah. And the only reason I would still show the house is my clients call me going, I want to see this house,
Of
right?
course.
Knowing that they're not going to pay it.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I started real estate in Northern California, and there were builders that would not pay the agents.
Yeah.
And when one of them, the builder's rep, said to my clients in the room, hey, we're not paying you. This was back in '03. And I said, yes, I know, but my clients wanted to come here. And my client heard them and went, what? You're not going to pay my agent? We're out of here. So she made a mistake because I was bringing them there because it wasn't about me, it was about them. And I knew I was
Sure.
going to get a lot of referrals. So
Yeah.
I think that's where buyer's agents sometimes I get, because I've been a buyer's agent, I always ask, what are they paying? And I usually just accept it. I have never fought anybody. If they're paying 1%, I go, okay. If my client really wants it, because probably like you, I have clients I've sold to their whole clan
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's Bernie. They know Bernie's going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So I may not make as much money here, but down the road, I'm going to make some money. So when it's
Yeah.
only about the money, you're living in the shallows.
Yeah, I mean, my entire business was built on Sphere because I didn't do cold marketing. I
Yeah,
didn't call people. I didn't have to. For 10 years, I had a full-time job before, and then all of
right.
a sudden, I stopped doing that. And I had to sell real estate, so I already had a Sphere built in.
Hmm.
And 95% of my closings are Sphere, so I don't have to
Yeah,
worry so much about having to convince anyone of anything.
same with me. Mine's like 99%. I look back last year and I went, not one deal did I get from outside my sphere.
That's the ultimate place we all would want to work
Hmm.
towards.
Right.
Um, so we've talked about myths about appraisals and what things are
Uh-huh.
happening. And then is there anything specific you'd want to share with realtors when it comes to appraisers? Maybe one or two tips that just would really
Yes.
add value.
So, one of the things, like when you have a property, which I live in Weatherford, but I grew up in Fort Worth, and when realtors put in the information in the MLS, right? So we as appraisers that we get all of our information off the MLS. So I go in and I've got a 4,000 square foot house and I go look at the MLS and I see 4,000 square feet. And so I pull these comps and then I have to dig deeper. And I see that the tax records show the house is really 2,800 square feet and it's got a guest house or a barn apartment. And so when you're not supposed to add those, right? And people go, oh, I don't do that, but I see it all the time. And so it makes it tougher because when you have a comp, we have to have the most similar comp, right? So if
Yeah.
you have a guest house and a house, I have to go find comps with a guest house and a house, right?
Yeah.
I don't add the two together and go look for a house that matches that, because it's a whole different value.
Well, otherwise you would just take the 2,800 square foot comp and then you would have to build some value for this 1,200 square foot guest house. That's the
Right,
only other way to do it if you don't have, and you're probably not
right.
going to
And
have
how
very
do
many
you do
comps.
that? It's easier to go find a comp with that
Sure.
guest house,
Because it's already built in, of course.
Right. And part of that square footage, I get a lot of because there's like a lot of older homes. Let's say they took the patio and they enclosed it, right? And they even air conditioned it out there. But per our guidelines, if I go and I see this great big enclosed patio with air conditioning, but I turn around and it's the brick wall from the exterior, it's not finished out,
Yeah.
right? I'm not allowed to use that as square footage.
Hmm.
So it has to be completely finished out like the inside of the house.
Insulated with drywall.
And same with like some older homes, I go up into it. They say it's a second floor, and you go up. I'm 5'2", and I went up into one. It was built in like 55, right? And I go up, and I like the ceilings right here, right? So there's a certain guideline. I
Mhm.
think it's 5.5 feet that
Yeah.
we can't use that as living space if that ceiling is so low.
Yeah.
And when the
Oh,
ceiling
the
comes in
angles,
like
yeah, the
this.
attic's finished out, and then you got a big chunk of the room that it's finished
Mhm.
out, but it's not usable
Right,
in the walk-in
right. It's
space.
usable for storage,
Yeah.
but so that's another thing that I've had agents come back at me, and what they don't realize is we're regulated. They're going to throw it back at me. They're going to, and that's the difference with
Well, you
realtors.
may not get caught on that because there's no one's going to go in the house to validate it. But the problem is the next time it gets appraised and they dropped 500 square foot because you added it and they didn't, you have a liability.
Let me tell you how they're going to catch it. I have to take a picture.
Yeah.
So I have to take a picture of every room.
Okay. So they'll catch the
Every,
picture. Yeah.
yeah.
And they'll be able to
And
tell
they've come
you
back at
just
me
did
with
it.
a picture and they're going,
Yeah.
hey, you labeled this as a bedroom and it looks like an office. And because there's office furniture. And I go, well, it's really a bedroom. They just use it as an office. I mean, I've
Right.
had them look at the pictures and come back. So we have to take pictures. Um, and the one that I did that I remember is it was very obvious that it wasn't, you can't live in it, unless you're a little kid that just plays up there. The other thing about square footage with realtors is let's say you have a 3-car garage and they decide, and I've seen this more than I thought I would. And you walk into the garage and there's 2-car garage, and they take that third bay and they finish it out, they air condition it and all that. You can't add that. If I have to walk into the garage outside the house and walk into that space, I cannot add that as living space. I can use it as a small little guest area, be an added amenity, but I cannot use that as added square footage to the house.
Is it worth more? So you detach one garage, you lost value, and now you increase a separate living space. So
Mhm.
they're going to get value for it, but they lost value on the garage.
Yeah.
So do you think that's normally a surplus or not near as much as they're accounting for it?
Yeah, I feel like people don't understand garages are sell better than that little space. You know what I
But if it
mean?
was attached to the house and we just extended the attachment
Mhm.
into the one
It
car
would be
attached to
better.
that,
Right.
okay, then
Yeah.
that could be included.
Right. Right.
Okay, that's
So
interesting.
I think right there, that would help agents. And the other thing is 4 bedrooms. You and I talked about that, I think the first.
Yeah, yeah, that was a big thing, and I'm
Yeah.
glad you remember that. Look at you.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
that was an
Because
isolated
a
thing
lot
in
of
my
people ask me
training.
that question. Well, 4 bedrooms get more money. I
Yeah,
said,
well,
but did
I
you?
pushed back on you because it's exactly what I said. And I said, yeah, I know in rent it certainly is applicable, right? I can generally get maybe another $100 a month on another bedroom because it's more
Right.
valuable for a
Right.
renter because it's temporary.
Right.
But I always thought when selling a home, 4 bedroom homes, I always thought sold at a higher price. Now they are typically bigger, so there's obvious problems. But if they're the exact same square foot and
Mm-hmm.
one's a 3 bedroom, one's a 4 bedroom, you said that will have no impact on appraised
Right.
value. And I
And
just,
also, you
sorry,
go
go
in
ahead.
that neighborhood and go look at what the 4 bedroom sold for and the 3 bedroom sold for. Then, if you can see a difference, so if I can see a difference and I can prove that to the lender, you
Sure.
know, then I'm going to do that. But my comps are going to be 4 bedroom, 4 bedroom, 4 bedroom.
Well,
And
you're
some
adding
of them,
value for the house, not for the bedroom. You're not
right,
saying fireplace outside, $500, fourth bedroom, 250. You're not doing
exactly.
that. Yeah.
Right. No. And you got to admit, like a lot of houses have 3 bedrooms and then an office with a closet. So
Yeah.
you can consider that a fourth bedroom.
Sure. As long as it checks
So,
all the other boxes, right?
yeah,
Ceiling height, egress, ingress, square foot
absolutely.
of the
Right.
room. What's the minimum square foot to qualify as a bedroom?
I don't think there's a minimum. No, but not that I can recall.
Really?
It has to have a closet and it has to have a window.
So I've got a closet with a window and it
Mhm.
has another room in it with a door, but it's only like 3 by 3.
Well, it's got to fit a bed in it. Let's put it that way.
Okay. I
You
just
have to
wondered.
fit a bed in it.
Yeah, I'm catching you on the spot. Let's see if I can
Yeah,
catch you on one of
yeah.
these. I
I've
always
never had
thought it
that.
was
I've
probably
never
like
had a
a,
bedroom so small you can't use it.
well, I've had that, right? So 8 by 9, or I'm trying to think like somewhere it's getting to the point where you can't really function as a room. You're just going to sleep on the floor.
Well, and that's going to show in my measurements, and I'm going to say, this could be a bedroom, but actually it's too small. I actually have never come up against that.
Well, it's
So,
hard to argue, and there's not enough value probably in it to argue
right.
because
Yeah.
you're getting the square footage.
Right.
You're just not calling it a bed. And like you said, you said there's no value in the bedroom.
Right. There's
So
not.
I get the square
Unless
footage
you can
anyway.
prove it with the sales in your neighborhood that they
Now, it might
actually get
help
more.
there in the promoting of it because some people need 4 bedroom, right? That's the
Right.
only way they're going to buy it.
Right.
That's the only real benefit is that sense.
Right.
And that's where I was thinking when I was making my argument is like, okay, I'm getting rid of like all 3 bedrooms when I have a buyer, and there are buyers that have 3 kids. They're only going to look at 4 bedroom plus. So I'm eliminating a lot of the market inherently. That's the way I think about it. That's why
Right.
I think they're worth more. And chances are they're probably bigger too, most of the time. You're just not,
And our floor plans these days have that office space that make it a 4 bedroom. A lot of
yeah.
people will use. I did that. I sold a house with 4 kids, and they go, "We'll use the office space. We love the land." So it's just a matter of their mindset and what they're looking for too. I'm one of 7. We all shared rooms, but these days nobody shares a room. So
No, no, we don't. And we don't have family living with us and we don't have family living by us. And there's a whole
right,
lot of things that have really changed over
yeah,
the last 15, 20 years. And a lot of them I
right.
don't think are better.
So, and
Um,
the other thing, so bathrooms is what adds value. So if you've got a half bath in a house, it's worth about $4,000 to $5,000. Like I give a value of 5,000. Some other appraisers may give it 4. that actually adds value. A full bath, and depending on how elaborate it is, probably around 10,000. So if I'm got a comp at a 2-bedroom and my subject is a 3-bedroom, I'm going to add 10,000 to the comp that has a 2-bedroom.
Gotcha.
Ultimately, I want to find comps with three baths, but if I don't, if it's 2.5, then I add 5,000 and stuff. So bathrooms are a big thing for value, and garages. Like I've looked at neighborhoods where 3-car garage houses actually went for $30,000 more than the 2-car garages
Wow.
around the same square footage within 100 square feet of each other, and
Hey,
it
I'm
just blew
Bernie.
my
I'm
mind.
like I'm like that buyer. I would pay more for a
Yeah.
3 car. I have a 3 car now, and my house is smaller than a lot of the houses in my neighborhood, but the three
Mhm.
car is unbelievably beneficial. It's
Yeah,
really
and
good.
like for a garage, I would only give like an extra bay of a garage. I only give like 10,000. Some only give 8. But I actually went, wow, why is this going for more? And I went and looked, and all the 3-car garage sales went for on average 30,000 more. They
Mm.
wanted that extra garage, you know?
It's
So
worth it to them.
yeah. So that is very valuable. One of the biggest improvements that adds a lot of money people don't realize is outdoor living and kitchen.
Yeah,
So,
that's
so
a good investment. Pool's not
yeah.
a good investment, but outdoor living and kitchen is a very good
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah, because it's attached to the house, kind of. Yeah, pool. I had that question yesterday, and I said, depending on the price, if I got $1.5 million
Yep.
property
You
and
might
it's
get
this
value on it.
elaborate pool, I'm gonna
Yeah.
give it 75,000, right? If I
Yeah.
find a comp without a pool, I'm gonna give it 75,000. If it's 250,000, 300, and I got this pool and it's smaller, I'm gonna give it 10 to 15. And you, same thing, you go into the neighborhood or the area and you look for houses with pools and houses without pools, and what are they selling for? What value is it? So you have to figure that out. And that's where realtors, we don't dig that deep. We weren't taught to dig that deep to see that, right? So if you knew all that before you went on a listing appointment, because your client's going to go, hey, I have a pool, I should get a lot more money. Well, yeah, it may be more desirable depending on who wants a pool. In Texas, a lot of people want a pool. And I tell people, if you're going to want a house, if you want a pool, buy a house with a pool. It's cheap.
100%. Well,
Yeah.
the cost of building is outrageous now,
Yeah.
but I mean that kind of makes it almost impossible to even consider buying one and trying to put one in. Well, let me do one last item with you. So there is a big market right now of houses that are not selling. We all know this, and they're
Hmm.
not selling. They turn to leasing. Most agents is not their space.
Right.
You are in property management. You do
Yes.
offer referral opportunities. So that is
Yes.
a plug for you for all these
Mhm.
agents that are like, I can't get my house sold, and they can still earn some compensation by
Right.
giving a referral to you. So talk to us about what that opportunity is.
So, like we just had an agent from EXP call because she heard that I'd moved to this company because I was previous with EXP, and she has a townhome in Dallas and she couldn't sell it, and she said, her client wants to lease it, and I let her know. Well, Rebecca McGinnis let her know. Hey, we do property management. So I turned over her number to my business developer, and she called her and called the owner with the agent's permission and said, "Hey, we'll manage it for you," and gave her all the information she wanted. And then we asked the agent, "Hey, do you want to list it for lease or do you want us to?" Because we always want to give them that opportunity. And she goes, "No, I'll list it for lease." So she did. She listed it for lease, got it leased in a week, like $3,800. So then we signed the property management agreement. So she got the leasing fee, right? Because she did it for her client. And then it was $3,800. Anything over 3,000, we pay a $600 referral fee. We're sending her a check for $600. So we have like 3 tiers. Under 2,000, I think is 300. 2,000 to 3,000 is 400, and then 600. And I could be wrong there. Could be 4, 5, and 600. But anything between 2 and 3,000 is 500, and then 600 is over 3,000 a
Well,
month.
I think most agents really don't want to get into that space. So you just go do
Yeah.
it. If you pay me, great.
Yeah,
So
and if they want to lease it, but the difference with us leasing it is we have all the systems in place to actually vet the tenant, right? So we
sure.
have certain criteria and we want to make sure we get a good tenant in there. Whereas a
Right.
lot of agents, like I had my own property before and tried to rent them out. I had to hire someone to evict the guy, and I was a realtor thinking, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
It's such a different space. I leave it up to the professionals that hang their license under me, and they're really good. And they always refer to me when, we want to treat those referrals with kid gloves and make sure we're doing everything necessary to make sure their experience is great and to explain everything. This was an older lady. We needed to explain to her, hey, this is what we do, this is how we do it. And so, yeah, I think there's a big need for that right now. I think a lot of people are thinking, and I just showed a house Saturday, and he goes, well, I think we want to rent our house out before we buy this. And I said, well, lucky for you, we do property management. So we've sent him over the information, and he needs to see if he can qualify without selling his house. So that's something people think about on both levels. He's like, okay, maybe I can turn this into investment property and just buy this place, right? But yeah, it's a whole different ball game. My sister has her own company and has been doing it 30 years, and I used to refer everything to her, but now I refer everything in-house. We have our own maintenance guy. We have a whole team. It's like a one-stop shop there.
I love it, Bernie. Well, you've got a lot of different things that you've helped and benefited agents between the appraisal knowledge and selling a ton of real estate. And you do high-end real estate too. I know you sell all kinds of ranches and things like that is stuff
Yep.
that you've entertained and done with. And then you've done commercial. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
If you go to auburnrealty.com, that's our company. We're a new office. Auburn is actually a new office in the Fort Worth area. We have 8 other offices throughout the Southeast. So I would just go, I would email me, banderson@auburnrealty.com. It's AUBEN. We have a lot going on. We work with a lot of investors. We have capital partner funds that we're looking for properties for our capital partners to buy, and then we manage. So we help them with investing. So we have so many different levels of working real estate. It's kind of got me excited about real estate again in this kind of funky market.
I love it. Well, you've got a lot to offer, and I appreciate you getting on with me and doing the podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all of you for joining us. Bernie I'll post her information stuff at the bottom in the YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe to my podcast, Real Estate Success DFW. And I've got more opportunities coming every Friday. I post a new interview. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. Other than that, have a high performance week and we'll see each other soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Shaune.
That wraps up another episode of Real Estate Success DFW. I hope you're leaving with new insights that push your real estate career forward. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with fellow agents who's ready to succeed. And if you're interested in working together or have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me directly. My personal phone is 214-228-0383. Let's connect and make real estate success happen together. Until next time, keep pushing forward. I'm Shaune Corbett, and this is the Real Estate Success DFW. Have a high performance week.